Now, on Wednesday, Jeff Hafley did what I didn't think he was going to do, which is fire offensive coordinator John McNulty after just one season in Chestnut Hill. It was a bold move, but one that BC had to make as the Eagles' offense was completely a mess in 2022. Now, on today's show, we're going to look at past McNulty. We're going to look at what Jeff Hafley has to do to be successful with this hire, where he needs to look, his philosophy that he needs to have with this hire, and we'll look at a couple candidates as well. It's a whole episode talking about BC offensive coordinators. This one you're not going to want to miss. Make sure to check out today's episode of Locked On BC. Here we go.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On BC. Today's episode is by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Online, where the game starts. So on Wednesday, Jeff Hafley fired John McNulty. And I said this is kind of a move that really kind of shocked me because to me, what I thought was going to happen and still could happen was that Hafley would have cut out Dave DeGuglielmo, Googs, the offensive line coach, and call it a day. Because, I mean, yeah, there was issues with the play calling. Yeah, that the offense was bad. But at the end of the day, he would look at it from a perspective of it was the offensive line. They had no offensive line growth. That was a big issue. But I guess he looked more holistically. And I have learned over the last couple of years, one thing that I've got to give him credit for is Hafley seems like a nice guy, but he has a killer instinct to him too. This is a guy last year gutted the entire offensive coaching staff because they were bad the year before. He's not a fire coaches if they're not doing what they need to do. So now he has a bigger problem in front of him. He now has to hire third offensive coordinator in 4 years at Boston College, which is insane because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but how many offensive coordinators has Boston College had over since Steve Addazio started? Like eight in 10 years. I didn't even look it up. If you know, look it in the comment section. I'll put it up, but it seems like quite a bit. But this is a big time hire for Jeff Hafley. And it's big because this is his pinnacle year. This is the year it's put up or shut up for Jeff Hafley because he went 3-9 last year. BC, as bad as you think the athletic program is not going to tolerate another 3-9 season out of their, big time program, the big money maker. They will move on. 4 years is more to get what you need. So Jeff Hafley has to get in front of this. He needs to be proactive, and he's done that in the transfer portal. 8 guys in the transfer portal already. 9, if you want to call the long snapper, they just landed from Penn State. I don't consider a walk-on long snapper a big deal, but hey, some folks do. He's replacing Gunnar Daniels, who had one of the bullets I've ever seen. But he did that. He's going to have to make a new offensive coordinator coach position, and I'm guessing he's got some positional coaches that are going to move on too. Again, this is the same time as last year, and I don't know if it's a contract thing or a money thing or if it's because after the holidays. I don't know, because this is around the same time that John McNulty was hired last year. I remember I had COVID around this time. I think it was like 2 weeks after this, but there was also around the time he wiped out the. Well, what does he have to do? Now, if you have followed Jeff Hafley in terms of his coaching hires, you've seen a common thread between almost everyone he's hired on this staff. Frank Cignetti, he worked with him at Pitt. John McNulty worked with him at Rutgers. Sorry, I was blanking on what with him for. Savon Huggins, Rutgers. Tem Lukabu, Rutgers. You just go down the list. It's like one after another. Everyone he's worked with has some sort of connection with him where he's worked with them before at another capacity. And Hafley has said as much. if you listen to his press conferences around the times he talks about his hires, he says he always looks for two things in terms of like what he tells the press. He says he's looking for a guy who we're having a little bit of technical difficulty here. Has NFL experience. He wants that first and foremost. He also is looking for coaches who also are going to have that experience with him. So Hafley has a bunch of different things that he wants. Now, there was a big move on Thursday night, and one that was even more shocking than McNulty, because more people probably paid attention to this than what we saw with McNulty's firing on Wednesday night. And that was Clemson firing Brandon Streeter, their first year offensive coordinator, or first year, because he took over for Tony Elliott. So why am I talking about this? Because what has been the knock about Dabo Swinney? Dabo Swinney has been a coach that's been accused of just being a guy that brings his own guys in. He loses Tony Elliott, Jeff Scott at offensive coordinator. He brings in, a positional coach, and he brings in Brandon Streeter. He doesn't do anything. Brent Venables, he heads off to Oklahoma. What does he do? He brings up another positional coach. He doesn't add new eyes. And it kind of bit them, at least on the offensive side of the ball this year. Defensively, I would say too, because the defense was not as good as it should have been. So what does he do? He goes out there and he changes the script. Now he's going to hire Garrett Riley, the TCU offensive coordinator, who was part of obviously a national runner-up for the national championship, who brought a TCU program with Max Duggan and a few other guys to one of the best offenses in the country. He goes and he snipes him, guy who has no connection to Clemson. And what does he get? Dabo gets praised. I can't hate on him for doing. I can't hate on Dabo for going out there and getting a new, fresh set of eyes on his offense. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you why Jeff Hafley has to follow that script. Why Jeff Hafley has to go outside his comfort and look for someone else that maybe he's never worked with before. But I also want to talk about our good old friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college to basketball in the NBA, and everything in between, including including hockey and futures. They got it all. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline. I love using BetOnline. If I'm thinking of doing some action, it's so easy. Just go boom, boom, boom. NFL, you can find the game. You can find splits between the first half, second half. You can find player props. You got it all there on BetOnline. It's so easy. I love using it because it's user-friendly and it's great. So they always have the fastest and easiest odds, and you can find the betting info right at your fingertips. So head to the website today or your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the games start. Locked on BC, AJ Black. We just ended last segment talking a little bit about Dabo Swinney, who, if I had Mitch on, he would be ragging on him because I know he hates Dabo. But credit when credit's due, Dabo did a thing. He did a thing on Thursday, which is firing his offensive coordinator and bringing in the Broyles award-winning best coordinator in the country, Garrett Riley. And I'm not expecting Jeff Hafley to go out there, or Boston College in general, because they don't have the funding to do this. And he's a first year, he's a coach that's on the not going to get a big time coordinator here. But there is a lesson to be taken out of what Dabo just did. There is something that you can take away from it that I think BC should do. And that is, they need to go outside of Hafley's tree. He has to go outside. Someone who coached with the 49ers, with Ohio State, Ohio State I'm gonna step back on there. If they get their quarterback coach, I would be okay with that. But Rutgers, Pitt, you know, any of the programs that he's worked with, because he's worked with quite a few, to get a new set of eyes in there. Someone who is a well-respected football mind, but also will, be someone Hafley can work with, because you don't want to bring in a pain in the ass that he can't get along with. So when I'm looking at names, right, we'll get into the safer picks in the third segment. You'll want to hear what I have to say with that. But there's lots of names out there that Hafley should look at. And before folks start to throw out names that are unrealistic, I absolutely don't think that Hafley should bring in an offensive coordinator that's going to flip the style of this offense on its head. What I'm saying here is Hafley has a pro style script. That's what he wants here. He is not going to go out there and get an air raid, a triple option, a team that runs, speed tempo like Syracuse does. That is not his philosophy. So I don't even want to think about them, because if he does that, he's recruited guys that fit his system. Why would he go out there and get air raid, which, you can say what you want. The big thing with air raid is you need to have good offensive linemen. BC has offensive linemen that can do it. I don't think so. So when I'm thinking what BC needs, they need a pro style offensive coordinator, and it can be a guy that can add things. I'm not saying that they shouldn't get an offensive coordinator that is just a clone of Frank Signetti, a clone of John McNulty in terms of their style. You can get a guy, and Mitch and I have said it on a podcast before, that can bring in those college elements. We want to see more PO. You want to see more, misdirections and things like that. But what I think is what Hafley needs to do is he needs to go outside. He needs to really think about what he needs to get in terms of an offensive coordinator that fits his mold. But it's going to be a guy he doesn't know. Someone who can challenge him offensively, because yes, you want a coordinator that will carry on your mission, but you don't want a yes man, because as we've seen and heard, Jeff isn't the wisest offensive mind. He's a defensive. You need to get an offensive coordinator here that can kind of take over. And I think that's what he's going to have to do. I think that's where things are going to end, and where BC needs to kind of, end this offensive coordinator search is somebody brand new. So when I'm thinking names, here you go. You've been waiting for 13 minutes. I see it on here for names that BC should look at that are not the typical that Hafley hires. The first one I look at, I'll throw a few names out here. Nick Charlton of UConn. Okay. Charlton came from Maine. He came from BC, but he was there before Hafley did. He is an offensive mind. He has the offensive acumen. I mean, he was able to flip UConn's offense in 1 year, and that was with no quarterback, no real stars on that team. I like Nick Charlton, and he has no connection to Hafley at all. He's a up and coming coordinator. I think he's going to go places. He would be a name I would watch for. If you're looking outside too, if you want to go older, go older. What about Mark Whipple? I mean, I don't think he's ever coached with Hafley, but he's another offensive mind, and he would add more college acumen to plan. I like Mark Whipple. I know he struggled at times as a head coach for UMass, but what about Whipple? He had some good success at Pitt. Pitt just didn't like him because he didn't run the ball enough, which whatever. But I think he's gone now. I mean, he's free now. He's not doing anything with Nebraska. He could be another guy that I think BC could connect with. And you could give me any names. There's local guys. I don't even go the NFL route. I know Hafley really values that, but if there's a up and coming coordinator, just get him. You've got enough NFL guys on this roster coaching. You don't need to get an NFL guy. So some questions out there, and I'll get to some of your comments. I know. Willie Corn is obviously a very good offensive mind. He is a guy that really, I mean, is impressive. Going to leave Coastal Carolina for BC, which that sounds sad, but at the beginning of this, if you're going to get an up and coming coordinator, Charlton is in a bad program. Coastal Carolina is not a bad program. Is he going to risk his career to go to BC? I don't think so. And again, we're going pro style. Coastal Carolina, they've got a really, really funky offense. I don't think BC has the offense to. So, that's the personnel. And Mike Bloch at North Texas. I don't know anything about North Texas. I gotta admit this. Other than you saying that they have the 22nd ranked offense this year, I don't know anything about them. I'll be honest with you, Bruce. It's a great option, but I honestly think they'll probably go with someone that maybe is a little bit more Northeast. I don't know if they'll go Texas. They got Darryl Watts already on the roster to represent Texas. I just, honestly, Bruce, I don't even care what region he's from. I just want them to get the best offensive coordinator they can get. In our final segment, I'm going to go down the safe path. I'm going to look at a couple of names of guys that are going to definitely be on the big boards that you see. I have my big board, and we'll get just a moment. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. We're talking offensive coordinator hires. If you have one, hit it in the comment section right now. And if you're listening, this is your first time checking out Locked On BC on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. We're going to be talking all coaching news, positional changes, all sorts of stuff as we get into spring football. If you want to get in on this and get all these videos sent directly to you, please subscribe. It's the easiest way you can help us. We're a free podcast. We don't charge you a cent, but the one thing I would love is if you hit subscribe. So do that for me right now. So I just told you what I hope Jeff Hafley will do, which is to think of outside the box. Think of a new guy that is not someone he is just, has worked with and has done things with over and over again. Now, I'll give you a couple names that I think are going to be the safe options. And I have two that will go over. The first and the safest option is Rod Chudzinski. Chud, as people on Twitter affectionately call him, is a former NFL head coach. He's an offensive coordinator through in Miami with the Hurricanes. He's been part of a lot, and he's been Hafley's special assistant. So Chud is a guy I would watch out for. But the big question with Chudzinski, is what will he want to leave his cushy job? He's in a job where he doesn't have to recruit. He's a job that he doesn't have to go on the road, meet recruits, go into homes, watch film of recruits. He probably has to watch some film of recruits because I'm sure he's helping Hafley with it. But why would you leave that if you're making a decent penny? So he could be someone you hear. I don't know if I don't think he's the right guy. And I don't think he's a guy Hafley's going to go with, especially because he's been the excuse me, the special assistant to Hafley. His name has been all over every offense that they've had. Maybe you have to go in a different direction. So again, you're going down the path of who are guys that Jeff Hafley knows. Scott Turner is a name that I've heard a bunch of people buzzing about. And I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of this one at all. He's connected with Hafley through his time at in the NFL. I think it was with the 49ers, if I remember correctly. I don't like this hire. He hasn't coached in college since 2010s. When he was a coach, he was a head, an offensive coordinator. It was with the Washington. and their offenses were bad. They were really, really bad. I don't care he has NFL experience. I don't care that he's connected to Hafley. Please don't hire. You have to do better than that. You need to get some fresh blood. That is basically was an offensive coordinator because his dad's Norv Turner. You need to do better than that. And I don't want that. I don't want either. Now, I have, and I'm gonna plug it here. I'm the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Sports Network. We're one of the premier college football networks out there, top notch, right? I have my big board, and Turner and Chudzinski are both on that list, but I'm building out a big board of all the names that you should be watching for. It's for premium subscribers, so you can sign up right now and get a good deal for a year subscription, but we'll be talking recruiting. If they fire Dave DeGuglielmo, I'll have a big board for that. We talk football analysis. I got Mitch on there. If you like Mitch, you can get on there, and he does film analysis, player analysis. He'll be doing draft discussions. It is the premier Boston College website, and you can sign up right now. Get in now. It's a good deal. Sign up and get and lock yourself in. And if you haven't already, as I said, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And you'll be getting all of our latest news here. Now, this weekend is a big weekend for BC sports as well. BC hockey plays tonight, if you're listening to this on Friday, against Sacred Heart. We saw BC split a series against Arizona State, who is a bad team. They got to win this game. They're just going to beat Sacred Heart. This is a game that's just going to go out there and take care of business, right? So that is one game to watch for. Also, if you are in basketball, Wake Forest is coming to Chestnut Hill on Saturday evening. The students should be back, so the sickos are going to be in full force. Wake Forest is we saw this last year. They are still very good. And it's on ESPN2. If you're not, as Bob McLaren just said, men's basketball is on national TV. It's on ESPN2. They need a bounce back win. And I don't hate how BC played defense against Miami. Miami was just shooting out of their mind yesterday or on Wednesday, shooting 67% from 3-point range. Isaiah Wong and that other guard that they had were just unconscious, and there was nothing you could do about that. BC's not going to run into teams like that all the time. So maybe a big win against Wake Forest will kind of cleanse the palate. Also, if you're into the transfer portal, I've heard buzz, but I haven't been able to confirm it yet, that recruits, and there was eight transfers, and we have them all up on Eagle Insider. Most of them are already on campus getting ready for class. So that's good. I've heard all but two. But I don't even want to tell you the names because I don't have it clarified yet, but I'm expecting in the next 3 days for BC to release the names and say that they're part of the class. So that's good news too. As I said, Hafley's done a nice job of addressing something. He didn't go with just, I live in the transfer portal. He kind of lived in the transfer portal this year. So BC football, they'll have their guys in for spring practice. That's good. That's good news, right? And I think that's going to wrap things up. I am off to go skiing for the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. And we'll be back on Monday to talk about the Wake Forest game. Hopefully there'll be some college offensive coordinator news. We'll look into any other news items that break over the weekend. Man, it's getting crazy, and you're only going to know about this if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that up right now. This is AJ Black. You can follow me on Twitter at AJ Black _BC. Or you can find us as well at Locked On BC. Find us on both. So at AJ Black _BC. Thank you all. I got some really nice comments on from some of you out there, and I forget, and I apologize if I have your names, who have just been thanking me for the site for the. Thank each one of you who have made us your first listen every day and made us part of your daily routine. I know being a BC fan is not easy. You're following a team, especially football, that's been playing really poorly. But I'm going to make it interesting. I'm going to make the news fun. We're going to get into some really interesting topics, and I'm giving you a daily podcast, something you are not going to find anywhere else. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon.